All right, now we're really getting fancy. So what we're going to do now is we have seen a method so far that doesn't receive any, doesn't send any, return any data, doesn't receive any data. We've seen a method that doesn't return any data and receives a parameter. So let's create a situation where we're returning a value. So here, instead of printing name out, calling this method, let's return the name that was received and then use that value to send it here in main. That's a lot of words. Let's just make it happen. Okay, so what I'm going to do is we're going to take this particular line out and we're going to call it instead from main. So the idea is we want to, in the main is going to be in control. First it's going to get the name, then it's going to print the name, and then that looks good. So we'll control it all from the main rather than calling it here from within this method. Okay, so we're presented with a problem already. We've got ugly underscore because at this point the program's saying, hey, I don't have a variable called name, so I don't know what to send it to that method. And we got name from this getName method. So what we're going to do then is, we've already utilized this line, so I'm just going to get rid of that. Instead of returning void, let's return the value that we got. So this method then is exactly that. It's going to get the name from the user and it's going to return it. Well, we've decided that we need to return a string, and so this little red squiggly line is upset because it says not all code paths return a value. Well, the compiler's recognizing that we said we're going to return a string, but we're not returning a string. We're just doing stuff here. We're getting it. So we need that word return, and we're going to return a string value. What is the string value that we're returning? Well, it'll be name. Okay, so that gets rid of this squiggly line, but we still got a problem here that remember, name is a local variable, so it's only available within this method, but we've returned it, but we haven't captured that information anywhere. We haven't stored or saved that return value. And so what we're going to do then is we're going to create a new variable, a string variable, and I'm going to call it a different name just for clarity, just for visualization. It could be whatever you want it to be because this variable is only available to these lines of code. But just for clarity, I'm going to call it something different than what we've called it down here. So now that I have a variable set up to receive whatever gets returned from this method, once this method runs, I shall have a name in username, which I then can send to user USR name, which I can then send to this particular method. So that satisfies the equation. So now I have this method that is getting the name, receiving the name, and sending that name to another method that expects to receive the name and print it out. Well, all right, let's see that work. I'm going to put that in debug mode, which you should be getting comfortable with at this point. Debug, start debugging, and we'll just walk through the code and make sure that it works. So step into string username, so it's come down to this next method. Right line writes what is your name to the console, which you can see it did. So I'll type in something different this time, Jiminy Cricket. I don't think that's spelled right, but I guess that's not a spell checker, is it? All right, so now I can see that Jiminy Cricket got put into that variable name. So it's going to return Jiminy Cricket. All right, that looks good. So once I return back and I execute the next line, remember this line hasn't been executed at this point, so username is still null. So when I hit again, now username got filled in with Jiminy Cricket, so I have a value that I can then send to print name method. So I now go into print name. The name has Jiminy Cricket in it. So remember, this variable is local to this method. It should in fact then be able to print Jiminy Cricket, which it did, so it looks good. And then I'm going to return back to the main after those lines of code are completed. We hit read key, and then I should be golden, and we finished the program. So now we've taken it a step further. where we've created methods that are complete. They're maintaining a single task. This one is getting name. This one's printing a name. And we're able to send data to this particular method. And we also returned data from this method. And we captured that data into a variable, which we can then do something with.